Hi, I'm Jeanne Schumacher, founder of Simply Plant Based, where I have programs to help you to change your health destiny, including the Pregnancy Advantage, where Dr. Deborah Shapiro, who's an OBGYN, she and I help women to get their bodies pregnant ready or to help heal their bodies if they're dealing with infertility issues, as well as the Plant Based Academy, where I provide help, support, guidance, and resources to help you switch to a plant-based lifestyle. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Suzannah Bozzone from Plant-Based Telehealth, and also featured in the movie Disease Reversal Hope, which was, first of all, amazing. Just gonna say that right out front. So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me here today.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Well, what made you go plant-based? Share your story with us.
Well, so I actually grew up in an Italian family. So food was definitely a centerpiece, not plant-based food, but whole food. We had vegetables, etc. But it was really kind of what we lived and breathed. Everything was centered around, okay, we're at lunch and my dad would say, well, now what are we having for dinner? And so it's really a centerpiece. But as I went through my training and I did my training in Denver, and then really began to recognize the role of yoga, interestingly, in my own health and in my own sanity, and then how it applies to the health of my patients. I did my yoga teacher training after residency. And so people assumed I was plant-based, right? They would come to me and think, well, I know you're a yoga teacher, so you're obviously vegetarian. And I would say all the crap like, no, we've got these teeth to eat meat, and I would say all the things that I'd heard other people say, because I have, had at that point, no nutritional training in medical school or in residency, or the equivalent of none. And then as I continued my career and was working in different realms, but one of them was as the director of wellness for our local hospital in Sonoma, and started recognizing more and more that health was driven by community. And we were kind of bridging that gap between sick care and the community where health is driven. And so, like a little angel, to this day, I don't know who that guy was, but he was somebody that was advising the CEO of the hospital, said, you should go to a lifestyle medicine conference. And I said, I don't know what lifestyle medicine is. And so I was like, okay, but okay, they'll pay for it. Great. I'll go. It's in San Diego. I mean, what's not to like? And so I went, and I just blew my mind. That was 2014, and blew my mind. And I walked in to the most vibrant looking collection of doctors. If you ever go to continuing medical education, which all doctors have to do to maintain their license, you usually see the most burnt out group of people hunched over their phone, plowing through the coffee, and looking really unwell. And I got there, and everybody had already been on their run, and everybody was looking really vibrant and great. And then they served all this plant-based food. And then I heard Dean Ornish, and I heard these amazing Neil Barnard, and I heard these amazing speakers talk about things that I always wanted to know, but was never presented to me. And then come to find out that there was so much evidence for lifestyle medicine, and I had never heard it. And so A, I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. B, I kind of distrusted it, because I thought certainly if this was true, I would have heard it with all my education, And then as I continued to listen to it, and would just, the recognition that back pain, one of the most common things you see every day in a primary care office, is driven by blood flow, which is driven by your nutrition. These basic things that are true, but no one ever told you. And so I, it was in that moment, I was just blown away by it. And I thought, this is it. And so for me, it was a pretty quick transition. I was off of meat quickly, because I actually hated meat and it made me feel like garbage, but I ate it because I was
Italian, the oil and the cheese.
Yes. Oh yes. Yeah. The cheese took a minute. The cheese took a minute, and the cheese and dairy was just so strongly represented at every meal. It was crazy. And so it was interesting. That transition took, I would say, a full year to get off the cheese, because every single day I was, it was in my breakfast. I was having yogurt at breakfast. I was having like clumps of cottage cheese, because how do you get your protein? and I mean, how do you get your saturated fat? Which is more like it, but anyway, and at that point we were living in California, and I wasn't so engulfed in the Italian diet anymore, and but that said, we ate a lot of meat just because I had been an athlete, and I was told, you got to get your protein. That's what my understanding was. And I knew that carbs were bad, but and so just so many of these transitions that are so big, but I have to say, getting off the meat was freeing, because it was always like lead in my stomach, and I just thought, oh God, thank God, I'm so happy to hear this data. And then I gradually, we released the milk pretty easily. The yogurt and cheese were the last to go, and by the time, by the time I stopped breastfeeding my youngest son, who was born in 2015, he never had any cow dairy of any kind. And so it was harder for my older kids, that transition. But I'd say by a year in, we were full on. And yeah, it's just been a fantastic transition. And I think a really pretty positive one, though, without some familial strife, or tension, and when we get to large gatherings, but now we're totally through it, and people just, they are what they are, and we're cool. We don't argue anymore.
Right? I gave up
Yeah.
too. I just bring my own food and call it a day.
Yeah. And I just am offering everybody lentil loaf. They're like, I don't want your lentil loaf. And I'm like, oh, that's really good, actually. I'm like,
I know. Well, I've gotten to the point where my family knows, like, certain dishes, like I make a spring pea risotto, that I have to make sure I get some before, like, because it'll be gone. Like, people will be licking the dish. And I'm like,
yeah,
I want
right.
some of this.
I know, but it's really amazing, because when you bring your own food and they want it. And the thing is that, the wonders, and I am really lucky in that we never ate really highly processed foods. And I think that puts an additional barrier, but vegetables have always been strongly represented, and throwing vegetables in different ways, and roasting a cauliflower steak, if you will, and those things, and just putting them in different ways. And I mean, my family they'll eat anything. And so you put plants in front of them, they're like, wow, I'll eat that too. So it works out.
Well, did you have any health issues that you were up against?
Well, I was lucky in that I didn't have a lot of really strong health issues, except for, looking back. And of course, I didn't tell anyone this, and no, I didn't go to the doctor, but I was chronically constipated. I mean, but I ate I would say a half a wheel of brie. My husband and I would probably split a half wheel of brie or camembert every night. I mean, that was not good. And
so right up.
That clogs you right up. And then, but somehow, and this is what I can't comprehend, is that I was like, gosh, I just think it's strange. I eat so many vegetables and I'm constipated, and like, I just have these conversations to myself. And then it didn't cross my mind, the fact that I'm eating this much cheese. And I also had eczema. I had pretty bad eczema. And I think that was, once I got off the dairy, and also really made a commitment in terms of, eczema is largely stress too. It's a lot of nutrition, but we have to look in the context and to recognize that, once you start living for purpose and you recognize, I want to empower patients. I don't want to continue to drive their disease. I want to help them know what's driving their disease, and help them redirect it. And when you're living like that, and when you go to work with purpose, and you recognize that you're making a difference rather than just continuing to throw pills at symptoms that are driven by lifestyle, then, it takes a load off. It doesn't mean that your life is less busy, but when you have, something that you're driving towards, and you actually feel like you're making a difference, the stress is so much better. And so between those two things, getting rid of dairy and redirecting the way I interacted with my life and my work, especially, has that, I feel healthier than I ever did as a collegiate swimmer. I feel healthier than I ever did throughout my entire life, and despite living a relatively healthy life in general, not smoking, drinking excessively, et cetera. But yeah, it's just been so freeing giving up that dairy addiction.
Right. And having the freedom to eat. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can go downstairs and eat anything in my house and not have guilt and not worry that I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to, whatever. No, I eat, honey. And let me tell you, I eat.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Me too. It's amazing. I mean, and that is so true, where I think that the way that we present it to people so often, they come from a place where they, oh, I could never give up meat, or I could never fill in the blank. And I think because they're seeing restriction, but once you're in it, you see freedom and you see variety and you see incredible flavors and you see what you could possibly do with all these colors of the rainbow. And it's just, it's amazing how your perspective really creates your reality. And then when you think, oh my gosh, and this is not only making my plates beautiful, but it's making my insides beautiful so that I can do what matters most to me. And it's just such a wonderful transition. And I've seen it just time and time again. So I'm lucky enough to see so many patients whose lives have been changed, much like yours.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because I talk to people and they're like, so what do you eat? Like tree bark, grass clipping? No, I save that for special occasions,
Right. Christmas.
So you were in the movie Disease Reversal Hope. Amazing movie. I mean, just the stories. Oh my God. I mean, you just, you walk away with like, yes. What was your experience with us?
Oh, it was such an honor to be in that film. And yes, everyone needs to watch the film because it's so inspiring. And you see so many lives transformed, including the lives of so many doctors. And I think that's what's incredibly valuable, or spoke very much to me, because it really does point out that we as doctors, we're in healthcare, right? We should know how to heal ourselves. But in fact, we're often some of the sickest people. And there's studies that say, well, doctors that smoke aren't as likely to advise smoking cessation. Doctors that don't exercise are probably not going to talk to you about exercise. Well, it's the same with doctors. Really aren't trained for nutrition. And when we recognize the power of food, I mean, Hippocrates knew it, right? But when we recognize the power that it has, and then when doctors do find it and transform their own lives, so often it's only then that it begins to get out to the populations and to everyone that deserves to have this information about how important it is to fuel yourself and how logical it is as well. So being in that film was just amazing, because it told stories, not just of doctors whose lives have been transformed, but also of just wonderful patients in different scenarios, focusing, there's cardiovascular disease, but also autoimmune conditions and hormonal balance and fertility and things that are so important that have not really been spoken largely about, I think, still. So it was wonderful to be part of that, and to be in a film with people like Scott Stoll and Dan Purgis and Monica Agarwal and Brooke Goldner, and just some people that are doing such amazing work. I feel really honored to be part of that amazing process. And so watch the movie. Oh my God.
So you have 3 children. Were you plant-based for all of their pregnancies?
I was not. Sadly, I wasn't exposed to the information at that point. But in my last pregnancy, I had been to my first lifestyle medicine conference. And so I was kind of in that transition during my last pregnancy with my son, who is now just turned 7. And so he actually has been plant-based his entire upbringing. But my pregnancies themselves, with that exception of no meat during my 3rd pregnancy, were pretty standard. I mean, pretty whole food, but way too much dairy and a whole lot of saturated fat. And so, yeah.
Well, have you noticed a difference in their lives since they've been plant-based?
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about just their health, I mean, thankfully, knock on wood, we go to the doctor for their wellness check once a year to get their school forms filled out. And that's it. Knock on wood. I mean, we really, they've been, with the exception of a couple, bangs on the head, for the boys, there's,
that's normal.
Yes, exactly. But really, no sickness. They bounce back so quickly. They're just vibrant souls, and their attention in school, their ability to focus. They can, of course, be very annoying, just like any kids. But overall, they're really fantastic. It doesn't take away whining or a desire for screens, but I have to say that it really supports them so well for growth, and everything on there. Every time we go in, it's really the pediatrician asking me about nutrition. So we're very blessed in that regard, and I think the fuel that they eat. And while they get older, they go to birthday parties. I don't restrict them, but I hope that they are learning to make their own decisions. And I do try to make them listen to their bodies. If they go to a birthday party and they eat, they will choose. I don't think that they've ever chosen pepperoni pizza, but they will choose certain things in terms of better, probably not good. But I almost enjoy when they come back and they're like, I got a tummy ache. And I think, why do you think that is? And just kind of talk to them about feeling their body. And I'm obviously a relatively intense person that does speak what is on my mind. But I'm trying to be very cautious about not pushing them too hard in the world of nutrition. And I have been known to do that. And so really trying to have them have a healthy relationship with their food and get an exploration of how their food makes them feel, and bring that awareness so that they will, when they're out of this house, make decisions that fuel them and nourish them. But we can hope and pray. And so far they're doing pretty darn good on a plant-based diet.
Well, you want to make sure you use those learning opportunities, because when they feel bad, it's like, ooh, yeah. So what did you eat? What did you eat at Susie's party?
Yes, let's talk about that. Exactly.
Those are key learning moments, because, oh my gosh, I got to share. I have a bagel story. Like, I went in to get, I was in another part of town, and before I could get home, because like I was going to hit the gauntlet of all this fast food places, and I needed something because I was starving. So I stopped. I was going to get a toasted multigrain bagel, as God is my witness. And I went in and he said, oh, we have a new cream cheese. And I was a cream cheese-aholic. We have a new cream cheese that has walnuts and raisins and cinnamon. And I'm like, oh, I eat all those things. And I couldn't even stop. And he slathered it on like a half an inch thick on both sides. And I went outside with this and I ate it like I'd just been released from jail. I didn't get 10 minutes down the road, 10 minutes. And I thought, it crossed my mind, because I absolutely hate hospitals and going there for any reason, like I have to be really sick. And I was considering to go back and have my stomach pumped. And because that's how bad it was. It felt like I couldn't even drive. I had to pull off the side of the road. I was laying flat on the front seat of my car. I thought I was going to die. I mean, and I got home, I sat up, and like 20 minutes later was able to drive home, but I literally crawled upstairs, laid on my bed in a fetal position until it finally passed, like about 6-7 hours later. And I was like, I'm like, please, it was in such pain. I was like, wow. And have I had cream cheese since then? No, no, not even plant-based cream cheese. I look at it and go, no, I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, I have done the same thing when it was my 40th birthday, and I was at a really good friend's wedding, and it was in South Carolina, and everybody was talking about this cake maker's like the best one in the state, and and it was some kind of creamy bunch of I don't know what. And so I thought, well, it's my birthday, and I literally had like a tiny amount, and immediately I was like, heartburn? I've never had heartburn. Just like, oh, it was just horrific. And I thought, this is not a reward. I mean, and that's what's really important, is that recognition when we talk about the changes that we're making. What is a reward? And retraining that our brains to know what is a reward. It's something that gets me the closest to my vibrant self, to my best version of myself. Right. And that is definitely not it. Like I'm about to throw up. I am not feeling my most vibrant self. I don't care if it's my birthday. I don't care if it's your wedding. This is not worth it.
Right. Well, what about your husband? Has he gone plant-based? Has he changed?
Absolutely. So my husband's British, actually. And so, a lot of sausages and a lot of potatoes. They didn't really say potatoes, but anyway, so really was like a big old sausage and meat kind of fella, and yeah, it's amazing. He is so incredibly supportive. It's just amazing. He's actually an incredible plant-based cook now. And he is an artist and went to art school in Italy. And as part of that journey, he lived with these Italian women who taught him how to cook. And so that was really lovely because he knows good food and he knows how to flavor it. And that's, I believe, unusual for British men. But so it was a bit of a transition. And interestingly, I don't know if you've ever heard of alpha-gal, which is a tick-borne illness that is by the Lone Star tick, very common around here, and it actually makes you allergic to all mammalian products. And so while we have not had any animal products in our house since 2016, I believe it was, he would, when we'd go out or we'd be at friends' house and they'd say, oh, you poor guy, you don't ever get to grill a steak. I'm going to grill you a steak, or, things like that when we'd go over to family's house who think that, he's sadly wasting from, protein deficiency or something. And so he would occasionally, say, okay, well, I didn't want to be rude, and so then he's going to hate this interview. But my British accent's quite good, I think. But anyway, so he would, partake in some of these mammalian products, and it was actually his birthday, and my intending brother-in-law said, I'm going to go get steaks for your birthday, and we're going to grill those. And so George was like, okay, and he did that, and then literally 4 hours later, covered in full body hives, and I thought, yeah, because he wouldn't know how long he's had it because we don't ever have any mammalian products in the house. But 4 hours later, covered in hives, and I thought, I think you have alpha-gal, which is only, I think, the alpha-gal has only been talked about since around 2007. And then he said, no, I must be something else. And as it turns out, so he tried again. The next time we were over at family's house, he tried 1 tablespoon of ground beef, and again. And so it's just this fascinating thing that he was plant-based before that, with the exception of every now and then going out. And now, as it turns out, I do not have these Lone Star ticks, in a farm somewhere, I promise. But it was just amazing that actually is occurring, and it's occurring here in the heart of the South. And a lot of people see it as quite a traumatic thing. But I've had patients that come in and they're like, oh, it's horrible. I'm so restricted. And I think this is amazing.
What a great excuse. Oh my God. No, I'm sorry. I can't eat that because I got bit by the Lone Star tick.
Exactly. But it's a lot of people have never heard of it, but it's more and more common. I mean, we know we have plenty of friends that have it. I mean, 3 people in our very close circle that have it, and I did not give it to them. but it's really fascinating and little known fact. Lone Star tick, alpha-gal, it's called. But anyway, so is my husband plant-based? Yes, he is. And so now I even know that he can't cheat.
Not even a tablespoon. Oh my God. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah.
I know you did not expect that answer.
Well, what was the most difficult obstacle that you faced going plant-based?
Yeah, I would say, overall, once I'm committed to something, it's not that hard for me, right? But it's certainly what I have found the biggest struggle is the tension that it can cause. Because I do not like tension, and I really strongly believe that food and our time at the table should be something peaceful. It should be uniting. I mean, someone said you don't age when you're at the dinner table with your family, and I just think there's this potential that we face when we go plant-based to cut us off from our family, and it doesn't have to be that way, but there's a bit of a transition in learning how to navigate that. And so I would say that's been the biggest struggle, especially coming from Italian roots, where you have to recognize where is the emotion of this love for my family and this love from my dad used to talk about cannolis and these black and white cookies and everything growing up in the Bronx, and how much of the separation between the love for my dad and those stories and his passion for food and where the food stops and the emotion begins, and so I think that there's great opportunity there, but it can be quite a struggle. And that's a wonderful opportunity to learn and to grow with that. And I have a lot of patience in knowing, with food addiction and the emotions around eating, that's a big deal. And so finding our power in that and not feeling isolated and cut off, like we're not part of the group, because that's really in our, our, what are we? We are part of the human race. And what is our biggest fear when it's all said and done is being kicked out of the tribe, and so that's really where I devote, or what I think is most valuable with my role, is to create community and positive change and inspiration and connection to why you want to live longer. And then recognizing that if you're clear on that, then your health is necessary for that end, and your health is driven by your lifestyle, which is with intention and power, and that we can kind of navigate around some of those emotions and begin to get distance from where's the food, where's the emotion, what's the true endpoint, what's my true reward? Is it something that's going to get me closer to my purpose, or is it something that's going to make me feel like I'm going to, vomit? Just to bring that full circle.
Okay. So what kind of lifestyle changes do you recommend?
Yeah, well, I think that's, in a nutshell, when I work with patients, I look at really a very comprehensive intake, but what I think is the most important thing is that they know why they want to live longer, and that connecting to that purpose is pivotal. And then as we kind of go through lifestyle habits to find what they're ready to do. And often I find that their readiness for, say, let's take plant-based nutrition, they might not be there. And that's, you got to be okay with that. And so you have to say, well, what are you ready to do? And so often I find that people have to feel nourished before they start taking things away. And people need to feel cared for. And that requires sleep. And that requires connection to things that nourish our soul. And so sometimes we'll start there first. In fact, often, knowing how important sleep is, that if we don't sleep well, we will eat 300 to 500 more refined starch-based calories. We'll crave more. We'll have less resistance to the things calling us, that we think we want to eat. And so that's a really important thing. If that applies, that we address some of the barriers so that they can succeed, and then make realistic goals so that they can feel their confidence build and feel success. And we recognize how to celebrate success on that journey. And so when I kind of meet with patients, that's kind of what I'm looking for, is to say, what's your goal? Sometimes I'll hear, I want to get on the floor with my grandkids, or I want to go in a caravan with my husband across the United States, or, whatever it might be. So that's where the focus is. And then we talk about, that the endpoint is not a weight or a number that kind of defines you as perhaps sick, or a diagnosis code, like your blood pressure, but rather that the endpoint is, do you have more vibrance to do what matters most to you? Are you feeling more energy? And that's, I'm sleeping better. I feel lighter. My gut feels lighter, these things. And then that I can walk longer, and that's getting them towards that hiking that they want to do. And rather than kind of the negative endpoint, because I think we're really disastrous in our medical system about identifying people as sick, because we can't get reimbursed unless we have an ICD-10 code, and those codes are always pathology. So you're a diabetic, or you're hypertensive, or, and when that's our identity, that's how we interact with our universe. And so I think first we have to start with redirecting our identity as the most vibrant person and the best version of myself that I'm trying to become, and then work towards that.
So walk us through a day of food. What's it like for you?
Yeah. So I might walk you through a day, which is, I get up and I get my kids fed and those things. And then I try to drink 24 ounces. I don't know if you can see this of these big old jugs of water first. Starting the day with hydration, I think is so important. And then I'll usually go on a walk or do movement first. I just like to do that first. I don't feel particularly hungry when I first wake up. And I'm obviously somewhat of an energetic person and I really have to get my exercise in. And so I try to get that in whatever I can first thing in the morning after my water. And then after my exercise, I will have the most amazing breakfast that I long for now. And what is that? Well, so I will make a dressing and it's a bunch of greens. So basically the greens are the centerpiece, but I do ground flax, which is my hack for anybody starting on the journey to start retraining the microbiome, the wonderful fiber and the omega-3s and to fight inflammation and the lignans for hormonal balance and so many things. So I start with, I don't measure anything, but I put in probably 2 tablespoons of ground flax. I put in, turmeric, which is probably like 2 teaspoons. It's quite a lot of turmeric with black pepper. And I put in chipotle seasoning because this is my new favorite thing, and some nutritional yeast that's fortified with B12. And then I'll throw in sauerkraut. And so just wonderful fueling the microbiome and a little bit of the juice from that with some water and make it into a dressing. And I might put a little bit of tahini in there, second highest, lignan source, and it makes this a wonderful thick dressing. And then I'll toss in my greens. And so I usually do arugula. It's my favorite. Recently, I found some mustard greens, which I really like things with big bites to them. And so throw that in there and then throw something a little bit sweet like frozen cherries or goji berries or something just so that it's not all bitter. And that, or some variation on that. Sometimes I'll throw beans in it and lose the berries, or sometimes I'll put some seeds and, make a little bit more crunch or, things like that. But in a nutshell, that's generally how I start my day. And if you start your day with greens, you can't go too wrong. And it's really satisfying. And then I'll have usually a lighter lunch because I'm working quite a lot. And so I might do oatmeal or something kind of relatively easy. Or sometimes, depending if my husband's there and he makes something, then I'll have something heavier and I'll have a lighter dinner. But it's usually a bean, a green, and a grain. And occasionally I'll have a little bit of dark chocolate without dairy in it. And I eat a ton, but I eat within a window of about kind of 10 to 6 or less, 2 or 3 meals in that time. And I feel so satisfied and I love my food and it's delicious. And I like going to bed a little bit hungry. I don't feel that like, just what I used to feel and what you feel sometimes when you have to eat a later dinner. And that's pretty much my nutrition. I make sure I get beans every day or tofu or some kind of minimally processed soy and greens and some kind of whole grains and seeds and nuts, and you got to have some fermented food. Boom.
Done.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of your favorite dishes?
Yes, I tell you, my husband makes this thing we call glop, which doesn't sound delicious, but I tell you, it'll blow your mind. It's basically, baba ganoush.
Right.
So baba ganoush, which is eggplant and tahini and variations and some spices, cumin and things like that, garlic. And so he'll make a baba ganoush base and then caramelize some onions and throw in some chickpeas and then throw in that baba ganoush, and it makes this, and lots of lemon, and makes this tangy, delicious glop. And you put it on top of a bed of greens, and I don't know why, it just blows my mind. It's just my favorite thing. And so I like that. And we'll do Moroccan quite a lot. We do a lot of curry, because it's just so, it just serves so well with, what you could do with sweet potatoes and greens and beans and dal, lentils. It's just amazing. And we do a lot of, spicy things because I find that your condiments are key, and I think that, early in the plant-based tradition or transition, I should say, you might not recognize how key it is to have those things to fall back on. And you think, oh God, if I have to face another bowl of beans and rice, but then you say, oh my gosh, if you have like zouk sauce or something that's spicy and cilantro and these amazing flavors, and or you put like fresh pomegranate seeds, or and then suddenly it becomes the most gourmet thing, and people look at you and think, God, I want that, and you think, yeah, it's beans and rice. but it really it's so pivotal to keep your joy, to keep the interest, that
Right.
it doesn't get boring, and it's so fun when you find a new flavor or something to throw in there.
Well, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? Well, I have to say, and this is not something like that I did per se, but it's something that I think is really important to recognize, that if you feel trapped in your job or in anything, to find the support and the freedom to follow your dream, whatever that is. And so in my case, it takes kind of a lot of guts to jump out of the sick care system. I'm trained to be a physician, I have benefits. I don't know how to run a business. I'm trained to see these 20 patients a day. But when you recognize, or as my health coach says, it's like sex. Once you know, you can't unknow. She's amazing. And it really exemplifies that if you feel you're contributing to the sick care system, and then the ability to jump out of it and to follow what you feel like your gifts support, and what the need is. And so doing that, and jumping out of the sick care system, and fully engulfing myself in lifestyle medicine, and working to create communities that can unite around positive change, I think is what I'm most proud of. And of course, it's not me, right? My husband had to say, you need to do this, and in the long run, if you follow what is your purpose and your calling, then the choices that you make are getting you to that end, and you're going to do things better and more efficiently, and you're going to use your skills, and you're going to have fun and find joy in the journey, and you're going to be nicer to your family, which which in the long run is pretty darn important. And so I think that that's really key. I think that the work that I'm doing in the community right now, it kind of exemplifies that, which is trying to work with the National Blue Zones team to create this area. I'm in Chattanooga to become a Blue Zone, working with the wonderful organizations and partnering with these incredible feet on the ground like the YMCA. And we're starting this project that's teaching teens to garden and to cook whole food plant-based meals with Latino and soul food flavors. So really trying to empower populations that are unfortunately often don't have the access or the education to healthy food. So many of us are lacking that, but particularly it's largely dependent on zip codes. So and then the meals that they're making, not only are they learning and planting the seed of food as medicine, but the meals go to heart failure patients that are being discharged from their same community in a hospital here in town. So they will get to see the impact they're making on these patients, and physicians will refer patients to the program. So physicians will see the role that lifestyle and food specifically has played in these patients. And so I used to refer to a program very similar to that, which is called the Series Project in California. And that is really where I saw lifestyle medicine, the connection, the need to address patients through the most basic but most empowering things like nutrition and connection. And so starting that, so ever since I got here in Chattanooga, I thought, I need to start this program. And so partnering with the wonderful people at the YMCA and so many others that are doing this kind of great work, we're starting it. And the variation we're taking is that it's completely plant-based as opposed to the original program, and that it will be el soul food, meaning Latina tastes and geared towards Black flavors. So I really think that that's where the power is, because, we got to make communities. We have to make it not isolating. We have to bring people in. We have to make it fun, and we want to make people want to be in there. And so it's not about what you're giving up. It's about what you're gaining. And in that particular program, I think it exemplifies everything that we can do in terms of transformational healthcare in lifestyle medicine.
Wow.
And that's so cool.
I know. Mi corazón.
Yeah, mi corazón. Yeah.
Well, what are 3 things someone can do to start this journey?
Yeah. Yeah. So 3 things. I would say number one, know your why. And that's what you focus on every day. That's what you put on your fridge. Because when the days get difficult, you got to reconnect to that. And so know your why. Number 2, ground flax, I think is the easiest hack to, you could do, you could stick it anywhere. You could just drink a flax egg, which is just 1 tablespoon of ground flax and 2 tablespoons of water, let it sit, chug it down. Or you don't have to do that. You can put it in porridge, oatmeal. We call it porridge now because, the
British.
and we can put it in a smoothie. You can put it on a sweet potato with some cinnamon, all kinds of options for that. But starting with 1 tablespoon of ground flax and increasing your vegetables wherever they are by 1, ideally 1 cup of dark leafy greens. If it can be cruciferous, hallelujah, it doesn't have to be, but that's where just start realistically and go from there. What's achievable for you and reconnect it. And then celebrate. So you give yourself, I'm going to do this for 6 weeks or some time frame. The ground flax, I'm going to reconnect to my why and start dark leafy greens. And then maybe after that, I'm going to add half a cup of beans. And then, and then you build like that. But I think it's important to make it accessible. And there will be people, and there are always people that, they hear it and boom, they're done. But and that's amazing. When you see those patients, they're amazing as well. But there's something for everyone. And so really connecting to that and finding your power through that, focusing on what to gain rather than what you're giving up.
Oh, gosh. Thank you so much. And if people want to connect with you, where would they find you?
I am on Plant-Based Telehealth, which is an amazing group. I am so honored to be part of this group. I think we're 11 doctors right now. I think we have almost every state covered. And just the most amazing team that I'm so lucky to be part of that can really guide anyone through their transition, through their health concerns and really support them. So I'm there. I'm here locally in Chattanooga as mytruehealthjourney.com, which we named because we got to focus on the journey, not the destination. And I'm also on Instagram at mytruehealthjourney and also Dr. Suz B, SUZB. And I'm on YouTube as Z Bozzone. I know so many things. ZBOZZONE.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank
and
you.
Sharing your amazing journey.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it and everything that you're doing. I'm really honored to be here.